Ugh. All right, Max, and whoever else watches these. Another good one here. How to Understand Israel in 60 Days or Less. This is by Sarah Glidden. I hope I'm saying all that right. I think I am. More confident on the Sarah part. Really cool book. As I've started to do, I'm actually trying to summarize a bit the story before jumping right into the patent pending scoring methodology. But this graphic novel is about the author's experience going through something called birthright, where basically certain, if you, I would have to look up the exact qualifications. I can never tell where to hold these on the screen so people can see them. Okay, I think that feels like a good spot. If you have a certain amount of Jewish ancestry, you qualify for a free trip to visit Israel for this birthright trip. It's historical. It's meant to incentivize some people to want to immigrate to Israel. And I know some people in my life that have done this personally. And it's, a very interesting experience. And the main character in this story is actually starts off pretty antagonistic and mixed about the whole feeling, about the whole trip. She's very empathetic and pro-Palestinian in many of the regards, and that obviously is a recurring theme throughout this book, just sort of the tension between Israel and Palestine, and which is also obviously incredibly poignant today, more than it was when this was written, and probably, and I think at the same time she is surprised by how complex the situation is, thinking almost like visiting would make it simpler, and then, not surprisingly, it actually gets more complicated. So without giving every beat for the story, it's really about her birthright trip and the complexities and beauty and frustrating parts of it. So my patent pending score. So first off, starting with the characters. Again, not surprising. We have a strong 8 score here. Sarah's character is really cool. You get to just get a lot of flavors of who she is. And something I like about this book is that her friend Missy also joins her for this trip, who you can see over here. Missy is like a good balance to Sarah in like different personality respects. And something I like about the characters in this book, I've talked about this with some other stories too. Like some of this book really reminded me of Ducks by Kate Beaton. Like actually some of the artistic style. Like the difference here is that you can see that there's a lot more color, but there tends to be kind of like a simplified facial expression, cartoony style. But some of the architecture can be like really detailed. And just like there being a lot of dialogue, a lot of characters in this story, just like Ducks. Something I thought was maybe a con against Ducks was there was almost too many characters and I couldn't remember them very well. This book, I think, really well on the character side, really does focus on the two main characters, Sarah and Missy, and almost all, again, Sarah is obviously the center of it. But throughout various portions of the trip, one or two other people get a very large amount of face time, like their tour guide for most of the beginning of the trip. You get some really interesting parts. Some of the people that she knows and like stays with. So I think like overall, Sarah's character here, it's a very fun. Fun maybe is not the right word, but she's got a lot of depth to her. Missy also as well. Even some of their interactions and like quasi fights throughout the trip, because it's also Missy's first time overseas. It adds up to, something very authentic. You really believe in her story. This is a personal birthright trip too. And then the side characters, whether it was, again, the tour guides or some of the people in the military, it felt like you just got the right amount of information about them, that they're kind of memorable, even if you don't remember their exact names. Anyway, so I thought the characters was a really strong point in this book. Gave it an 8. On the artistic side, I already showed some of these pages. I'll try to find some other good ones here, but and I already showed that one. I like like some of what she does. Like every chapter, you get like a nice map, and I like how I think she captures really nicely a lot of the colors of the different country. She has like good detailed drawings of some of the architecture, the buildings. uh, and yeah, I mean, I think like, is it my favorite exact art in the world? Like, no. Are there like very, very super memorable artistic scenes I'll probably remember forever from this book? Like, probably that's not the strongest feature. I still think the characters and the overall story are more interesting. But nonetheless, I still thought it pops off the page. There's some really interesting pages where again it shows more than it tells. What's going on through her head at different parts, which I really like. So I think strong thing overall. I think the strongest feature though is really, again, if you were trying to get a glimpse into a very authentic cultural experience, like the birthright trip, and especially like what it's like to be an Israeli citizen, to be a volunteer in the Israeli army. You get like some very good cuts and deep takes. You see somebody that like obviously cares about this a lot. You see all throughout the book, she just does a really good job at like littering in, like throughout. She will have, as just an example, when like a tour guide starts talking about a historical thing that happened in a particular part of Israel, she'll often splash it with her attempted rendition of how this would have actually looked at the time. And again, I'm not going to spoil it by showing you every single one, obviously. This would get too long. But I just thought that it was like, it was really, really well done. From some of the most famous sites in Israel and Jerusalem to some of these really interesting historical stories that are told throughout the birthright trip, that then you get to see her own rendition of it. It touches on a lot of history, a lot of things that I had no idea about reading before this. Good arguments too for even some of the propaganda. She expects there to almost be like very strong, heavy-handed propaganda for why Israel is kind of right in various conflicts, whether it's with enemies abroad or how they're treating the Palestinians. But they have a lot of like good history for why some of the security measures and how these policies came to be. And again, it's easy to cast everything as very black and white, but I think this book does a really good job at not, at trying to show kind of why there is this problem that was always going to be a bit intractable to solve. And anyway, I think like they just do if you want to get like a very interesting, good take on a bunch of historical stuff, beautifully rendered visually, I think, in the comic book form here, that it just is, I think of like a strong 10 score there. I think the last two scores a little bit on the weaker side. If I had to pick a weaker side, like I already showed this. This graphic novel is not incredibly long. 200 total pages, thereabouts, a little over 200. I think the only, and I have read this book more than once. I think the only knocks against it were that I think both in my first and second reading, I never got that feeling of like super excited to finish this all in one sitting. I can't wait to see what happens next. Maybe that it's very difficult to make something with like a lot of interesting culture and history, also sometimes very sad to like think about and just like want to plow through the whole thing. So I think a great book. It's not hard to read, but there is quite a lot of text and quite a lot of history, and some of it's quite heavy, so you might need to like digest some of it. And yeah, it just wasn't like a page turner exactly either time I read it. I think I read each one over like 2 or 3 sessions, and but still, I reread it. I couldn't give it a super low score, but I think it's more of just like an average kind of 5 in the middle. And then the X Factor side, I give this a 6 because she does some really, really cool things, again, throughout the book that I thought were interesting. Like one, again, thing, it's very like little details, I think, of just how to render things. Like one of the things she's, again, grappling with is she's kind of like in her, I'm going to do this repeatedly. I'm never going to get this, probably, which is okay. I'm just bad at this. Okay, there we go. I don't know why. But you can see here on the that she's in the one page in like a courtroom, and this is where she kind of goes to her mind when she's evaluating if she sort of is constantly scrutinizing herself and her own beliefs being on this trip. And like I like little details like that where she is in her own court case scene as both lawyer and prosecutor at the same time, and judge and jury. So there's like very interesting little things like that. Interesting visualizations of like groups of Palestinians and Israelis who have both like lost people in the conflict, and like visualizing the people they lost as these like ghosts next to them. Like there's just a lot of really, there's not a central like mechanic like I've talked about before, which is probably not the right way to say this, but like Mouse's central mechanic in my head of everything being various animals representing a people group, or like Shubik Lubik with the commercialization of wishes and the entire economy that emerges out of that. Those to me are 10 out of 10 X factors, such creative ideas for expressing, again, either very explicitly like an autobiographical or biographical story, cultural story through graphic novels, or at least the very region. I thought things like that are like 10 out of 10s. But nevertheless, I think this does a lot more creative stuff in kind of that X Factor unique sense, visually storytelling than a bunch of other graphic novels. So I gave it a strong 6. And this takes it to a 7.2 overall as an average score, which is very, very strong. Probably in our top quartile of graphic novels that I've reviewed so far here. This book is interesting too because the author, as far as I can tell, again, I think like if anything might be more, it might have stronger. It would be interesting to see a follow up to this graphic novel later. Like I tried to look up interviews to see past some of the more recent, obviously, attacks by Hamas and things like that, if they had, I guess, updated feelings about their experience or anything. But I think they stay pretty true to where they were, and very much advocating for like Palestinian rights as well. I think again that's a super complicated conflict that no graphic novel is going to resolve, but I love the empathetic story that this book tells, and I think it does a really beautiful job telling this own person's very personal story while also showing a lot of very interesting history of Israel, and again, like if you want to understand better how some of the conflicts organically or purposely arose out of people making decisions or just limited resource problems, this is a really good book. So I'll leave it here, and see you next time.